Style, a big topic for photographers. Photographers, videographers, creators. Anybody that's making something, we all want to have our own unique style. Now, I'm not saying I have any answers, but today I'm taking a trip out of Cologne, down the river a little bit to check out some of the historic towns in the snow. And I'm going to talk about the topic of style as I do it. So, let's talk. So, I suppose a good place to start is with the question, what is a style? And why do we all want to have one so much? Well, I guess the answer is pretty self-explanatory. A style is something definitive about the way an artist expresses themselves in their work. Something that stands out and makes you say, that's a John Doe photograph, or whoever, whatever the photographer is that you're following, or artist. Think of somebody really iconic, somebody like Van Gogh. It's pretty easy to identify a Van Gogh painting if you're familiar with his work at all. And that's a lot of the reason why we strive to have our own style, to stand out. To add something unique to our own work that makes people say the same thing about us. Maybe not to the same scale as Van Gogh, but something that stands out and makes our work a little bit recognizable. Now, it becomes even more important when you start entering the professional world. If we plan to start earning money with our art or our photography or whatever it is, having a style helps with what they would call brand recognition in the marketing world. The easier it is for people to know your work without being told, well, the easier it is for them to buy it. Pretty simple stuff, but that is not the only reason why we would want to find a style as a creator. Another reason why we might want to find a creative style or a creative voice is to find consistency or cohesion in our work. I mean, if you know what it is you want to make and how you make it, well, that's going to make it a lot easier to get started on something new. Having a particular style will help a lot to remove some of the resistance, and it'll help with exploration and expression of different ideas that you might want to try. Having a particular style doesn't mean that you do everything the same time and time again and you never try anything new. It can be that framework that allows you to push the boundaries and do something better with your work. It can be your way of expressing ideas and feelings. It can be the language that you use to communicate the message in your work. I sometimes like to think about it like that, actually. Your art or photography or whatever it is, that's like the act of speaking, and your style is like the language in which you speak. Having a well-defined style is like becoming fluent in a language. It can allow you to communicate your ideas and your message in a more well-defined and potent way. When I started photography, I started to want my own style, my own voice, pretty soon after I grasped the basics. And I know it's a really big discussion in the photography community, but to me, having a unique voice or a unique style comes from a place of really understanding your craft. Let's look at it like this. What makes a unique style? Or specifically for the case of this video, a unique photography style? It can be a lot of things. It can be a more technical style, like how a photographer uses different composition techniques, different lighting techniques, or it could be a softer style, like a photographer's choice in subjects, for example. Or it could be more related to post-processing and editing, or it could be a mix of all of the above. There are no rules, it's about being creative and, more importantly, well-rounded and well-skilled. And when you start a hobby like photography, you have to learn all of those elemental skills to a basic level. And eventually you get to the point where those basics start to become second nature. And when that happens, it starts to free up a little bit of mental space to start thinking about things like how you want to take certain photos, or even why you want to take certain photos. Now, I'll go into this a little bit more in a minute, but I think it's important to understand that first. To me, I think to a certain extent, finding your own voice or vision comes from a place of really understanding your craft. When things start to become too easy, I think that's when it's only natural to want to take the next step. Now, with that said, when the time comes that you are noticing that you want to have a little bit more input or voice or creative style or whatever it is, I know that it can be a little bit difficult to know where to start and a little bit overwhelming at times. You look around and you see all these other amazing people doing exactly what you do, except they have this really cool voice, this really cool style, and you want to have that too. I get it, I've been there. So with that in mind, I think there are a few things that can help boost the process a little bit, or maybe act as inspiration in a way, or just help push things along. The first of which is to read a book called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. Now, if that sounds like a specific recommendation, that's because it is. Steal Like an Artist is one of my all-time creative books, and I think it deals with this topic very well. It's not specifically about finding a style, but it's about the idea of inspiration and creativity and where all of that comes from. In the book, Austin Kleon talks about how nothing is truly divine creativity and how all inspiration comes from somewhere else. And he shows us how we can all find our own creative inspiration through the work of others. And I think this book is really brilliant at breaking down the walls that people sometimes put on creative hobbies like photography. This kind of snobby idea that creativity is only for a special type of talented person that has like some kind of divine creative gift. Instead, the book makes it clear that there are all kinds of ways that we can find inspiration as creators or artists. He shows us how we can find inspiration in other things by consuming other work and by stealing like an artist. And it sounds bad, but it is stealing in a good way. It's a great book and I highly recommend it for anybody that is trying to find their own unique style right now. And it's a really small book too, so you'll probably finish it in a few hours as well. It's like a small little pocket book on creativity. I highly recommend it, a must-have for creators. Consuming other people's work is a massive part of finding your style as well, and for the most part I agree. It's one that a lot of people recommend. Personally been a big fan of doing it too over the years, but I guess I would have one slight caveat, and that is to avoid doing it on social media if you can. All too easy these days to consume photos and videos specifically on social media, and in my opinion it is the bad kind of stealing like an artist. Honestly, it's more like stealing like an influencer. It's not anybody's fault, but so much of social media content is driven by the want of likes and followers, and styles on social media tend to come from that. And that's especially true today. So much of social media today is driven by the need of following a trend, having a certain video that works and then replicating that a million times. Like, how many people do you know that had one big video that really popped off, and now all of a sudden they're that guy that you follow that does that same video over and over again and has been doing it for years? That's not a style. That's getting put in a creative hole by the algorithm. Instead, I would say try and create through other media if you can. Books, movies, documentary, whatever it is you're into. Maybe even go and check out somebody's website. And something that I like to take into consideration personally is to look at how difficult something was to make. I often think that the harder something was to make, the more effort that went into it, the more that piece of creativity is worthy of my attention. And I try to look for inspiration in that kind of stuff. Take something like a movie, for example. Sometimes that takes months, maybe even years to make. It takes so many people, actors, directors, writers, crew. So much work goes into making something like that, and it takes real dedication and passion to pull it off. I find that's a great way to find something that I identify with. If I can find a little piece of inspiration in something as big as something like that, then maybe I can use it and add that to my own work in future. Something that is also mentioned by Austin Kleon in Steal Like an Artist is the importance of personal projects and how these can be a great way to find interest and personality in your work outside of your main focus. For me, I think it's about being guided by the other interests that you have, your hobbies or your passions or any of your other interests in your daily life. Maybe this isn't the best example, but like today I'm here in this old historic German town because I kind of like this kind of stuff anyway. Even outside of photography, I find these towns interesting and really pretty, and just the architecture is nice, so I tend to follow that kind of stuff when it comes to my photography. Finding these and telling these personal stories can be a great way to find your own unique style, letting your interests shine through in your work and speak for you. I mentioned earlier that having a good grasp on the basics allows us to free up some space to start thinking about things like style and voice a little bit more. Well, another important thing to think about is your why. Basically having a good think about why it is you're doing what you're doing. Paying attention to that and taking the time to figure it out. This kind of blends with my previous point a little bit, but it's all about finding the why behind your work. Why you're paying attention to the things that you're paying attention to, why you're taking the photographs that you're taking, whatever it is. These are all things that can guide a creative vision. If you're interested in a little bit more insights into a topic like this, another great book I recommend is Start With Why by Simon Sinek. It's an excellent book basically on how artists and specifically businesses are not driven by what we do or how we do it. We're driven by why we do the things we do instead. And so, to bring this full circle, I'm here thinking about my own creative style quite a bit. And I want to make it absolutely clear that I don't think that I have come anywhere close to finding like a really distinctive style. At least nothing like the photographers that I look up to. If I've learned anything over the years, I've learned that it's a really great area and it's full of all kinds of obstacles. I think it has to be mentioned that there is no right or wrong way when it comes to this kind of stuff. There is no correct way to be as a creator or an artist or a photographer. It's not really something you have or you don't have. And one of the big obstacles that I've found is that it's constantly evolving. My own chase for a style or my own idea of what my style is. It never stays the same, and I think that's natural. I think you see it a lot. It's totally normal for creators or photographers to want to try new things, to try to tell new stories. It's a good thing, and I think it's something that needs to be tweaked and changed over time. If it's not, it becomes too stale, too stagnant. It's totally normal to want to keep things moving. Another photography specific obstacle that I've encountered is falling into the trap of genre. Sometimes we define ourselves by a specific genre and then we become afraid to try new things because, well, that's not our style. But style rises above genre. It's something that's fluid and shows in our work across many different genres. And the biggest obstacle that I've encountered more than any other is that it takes time, and really it's never ending. Finding your own voice, your own unique style as a creator is something that takes a lot of time, and a lot of time getting to know yourself. And that's kind of the beauty of it. In my journey over the last few years, it's driven me almost crazy. I feel like I'm no closer to finding my style than I was a few years ago, but still it continues to inspire and motivate me to get out and keep taking photos all the same. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.